The civil rights era of the 1960s was a tumultuous time in American history, starting with Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King sit-ins. Nonviolence was the model for many movements, such as the Freedom Riders and March on Washington. However, some blacks weren't as peaceful as Martin Luther King. Groups that supported Black Power, like the Black Panthers, emphasized retaliation and blacks' independence from whites. Other ethnic groups, such as American Indians and Hispanics, also were fighting for their civil rights. Key legislation and support for the civil rights movement came from Lyndon Johnson and John Kennedy. The use of media also played a major role in garnering support for the movement's cause. However, some such as the KKK attempted to curb the Federalist role in the civil rights movement and aimed to continue their traditional ways. 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. This was the site of the famous arrest of Rosa Parks, a symbolic event that would provide momentum to the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Back then, public facilities such as the water fountains were separated, just like this bus, with a section for whites and another for colored people. This woman right here is Rosa Parks, and she was tired. Then came along a white person who saw that the bus was full. Rosa was asked to give up her seat, but she refused. She was tired. The white person did not like her insolence, but she said no anyway. Security was called to the scene, and the officer asked, "What is the problem, sir?" And the officer found out that he didn't like that woman's insolence either. So Rosa Parks was arrested. The arrest sparked the Montgomery bus boycott and became a symbol of resistance to racial segregation. In addition, the bus boycott gave national attention to rising civil rights leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr., who would later be prominent in the 1960s. Malcolm X was a civil rights advocate who deviated from Martin Luther King's nonviolent civil disobedience tactics. Later on, he began to disapprove the idea of violence and thought that change should be achieved by voting. He also began to approve integration. Carmichael was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee leader. He, along with Malcolm X, advocated Black Power, which encouraged blacks to be independent and told they didn't need whites, and nothing was wrong with being black. In support, blacks embraced their ethnicity, sporting afros and showing pride through the symbolic fist gesture. The Black Panthers were created in 1966 by Huey Newton and Bob Seale. Their initial goal was to defend blacks from police brutality. Despite this goal, they provided many social programs for blacks, such as free lunches for children and neighborhood cleanups. Sadly, their good deeds were overlooked because of their militant ways. Ironically, they suffered more violence than they had caused. Other groups like SNCC and CORE were originally nonviolent groups, but since they were composed of younger people, these younger people wanted more action and eventually became more militant. They advocated Black Power and preached that if one were attacked, one should attack back.
In 1954, the monumental Supreme Court decision in Brown v. Board of Education led to historical civil rights changes in the 1960s. Although President Kennedy made it clear in his nomination speeches that he was a supporter of civil rights, he did nothing to help push forward the civil rights issue. However, Kennedy did pressure the government to employ more African Americans. Kennedy's successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, actively supported the Brown decision and was convinced that discrimination was morally wrong. Johnson passed key civil rights legislation, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed unequal application of voter registration requirements and racial segregation in public facilities. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, which outlawed discriminatory voting practices that disenfranchised blacks, and the Civil Rights Act of 1968, which provided equal housing opportunities regardless of race, creed, or national origin.
During the 1960s, there was some significant opposition to the civil rights movement. Some of these include the Ku Klux Klan that revived in the 1950s and continued on into the 1960s, the immoral means by which police attacked protesting citizens, and the Brown Amendment that was added to the Open Housing Bill in 1968. The KKK had always opposed blacks and claimed to be pro-American. In 1963, the KKK organized a bombing on 16th Street Baptist Church, Birmingham, Alabama, and 4 African American girls that were preparing for Sunday worship died. The KKK also organized other attacks on African Americans, many times ending in death. In addition to the KKK violence, the police opposed black protests. They would hose down innocent protesters or let the police dog loose on them. Also, the Brown Amendment in 1968 was added to the Open Housing Bill, making it a crime to cross state boundaries to incite a riot. The Brown Amendment reflected growing backlash fomented by Black Power.
African Americans were not the only ethnicity to be discriminated in the 1960s. Hispanics fought for the right to vote and rights for farm workers. They organized into groups such as the Raza Unida. Hispanics also resorted to militant methods. The Brown Berets gathered into large numbers to show their strength and protest against police brutality and advocated for educational equality. Cesar Chavez was a leader in the United Farm Workers. He garnered nationwide support through moral appeal by his aggressive but nonviolent tactics. American Indians also fought for their civil rights in this era. Many joined together to form what is known as the Red Power movement. In 1975, Russell Means led a group of armed Indian supporters to the site of the Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890 in South Dakota. They captured the town and controlled it for 71 days. Massive national and international media covered the event. Furthermore, supporters of the Red Power movement captured the Alcatraz Island in a symbolic demonstration that life in the reservations were similar to life in the prisons.
Through public demonstrations and the media, the civil rights movement spread and gained support throughout the nation. For instance, Martin Luther King led the March on Washington to encourage support for the new Civil Rights Bill in 1963. Over 250,000 people showed up, and the media further spread their cause by broadcasting King's I Have a Dream speech, disseminating his message to millions of people. Bus boycotts also brought together masses of people to join the cause. Sit-ins, a method used by SNCC, also garnered many supporters. Furthermore, the freedom riders sponsored by CORE went into segregated areas to challenge segregation. In these two methods, the media depicted the cruel and violent ways by which the Southern government suppressed protesting blacks. The police's brutality towards innocent protesters increased the support of sympathetic whites towards the cause. These people also helped spread support for the cause. Tommy Smith, an Olympic champion, held a black glove fist in the air, representing black power for the world.